Back in the first module of this course, we briefly touched on the 4 phases to the hacking process: recon, scanning, enumeration, and finally hacking. In this module, we'll explore the first phase, recon. The recon, or what other people would call footprinting, is where we gather information about a target so that we can make a more educated decision in the later steps of this process and ultimately hacking their systems. I know it's very tempting and everyone wants to start hacking right away, but you don't get to skip to step 4. You have to start with step 1. And it is step 1, 2, and 3 that actually allow you to get to that hacking step. You won't know where to go. You don't know what you're doing. It's vital to spend 75% to 90% of any engagement on the first phase. This allows a lot of things. Data collection. It allows you to get a good idea of who your target is, physical, network presence, how many people they have. Getting good intel is, it's super important. Just because you also have permission to hack these systems in an engagement like a pen test or a security audit doesn't mean that you want to go in guns blazing. You don't want to just pound on the door letting them know you're there. You're going to want to simulate and be just like what a real hacker would be. Quiet, stealthy. These guys don't want to get caught. They don't want to go to jail. Black Hat spend months, sometimes even years, researching targets' weaknesses and vulnerabilities and looking for a way in, and ultimately a way to stay in. Footprinting and recon involve more than just a few parts to ensure maximum information retrieval. First, collect publicly available information about a target. It's insanely easy to take advantage of the information carelessly exposed on the internet. Information like IP address ranges, domain names, VPN information, public websites. Remember, not all information is technical. You'll also want to collect data like employee email addresses and phone numbers, facility information, security policies implemented, even the comments in the HTML source code. Everything. Anything that you can find. It is valid, it should be cataloged, it should be noted, saved, put in a cubbyhole, wrapped with a pretty bow. Whatever you gotta do, just do it. You definitely want to identify the operating system in use if you can. Any other details you can gather. Is it a Mac? Is it a PC? Is the receptionist a woman? Is it a man? Tall? Short? Do they have uniforms? Do they wear uniforms 4 days a week and then have casual Fridays? It would be really, really silly of you to pretend to be an employee in some social engineering tactic and showing up in uniform on casual Friday. Gather what you can about the system architecture, names, and of course usernames, passwords, anything written down on stickies, anything out there. I mean, half the time you watch ESPN, they've got like the Wi-Fi password sitting up in the upper right-hand corner of a screen or behind some guy that they forgot that they were going to be filming in the hallway, and everyone forgets it, so someone writes it down on like a manila envelope and pastes it up on the wall. Run queries on available databases like Whois, DNS. Footprinting is gathering what's available there, like anybody would John Q. Public. Anybody like you or me walking around the mall and we're casing the Starbucks. Anybody else could be walking around the mall doing the exact same thing. It's when you start interacting with employees that things kind of change and you kind of identify yourself. Always keep an eye out for existing vulnerabilities, potential vulnerabilities, things that you could get lucky and you might be able to skip a step, but don't count on it. It's helpful before you start footprinting to think about your objective and your expectations for the data you're trying to collect. Have a rough plan to guide your search and help you decide which tools are best for your purposes. You're not going to bring scuba gear to the desert. It's very much like that. If you have a physical engagement and you are doing building security and building control audits, you're not going to bring all the most sophisticated data center stuff when they don't have a data center. You're not going to bring hacking tools for computers that don't exist. Bring the tools that are appropriate, know what your target is, know what your goal, your endpoint is, and in most engagements, it'll all be written down. In this module, I'll highlight using Google hacking and social networking sites to find information. I've personally used both of these to discover major vulnerabilities in the millions of social security numbers and actually ended up on CNN. But before diving into those, we'll move on to the next video and enjoy. This lesson is about the methodology and process of footprinting. As I mentioned in the last video, it's important to have an objective and a rough plan for the data you're trying to collect. What are you trying to hack? This will guide the types of data that you target and the tools that you use. If your target is a physical building, you're obviously going to have some physical security measures. You're going to be taking a different approach than if it was a website. You're not going to go casing the building of a hosting provider when you're trying to maybe hack a website for your client. That would just be dumb. Now, you wouldn't probably be the first person who ever did it, but you might want to save yourself some time and some embarrassment. You will mainly engage in two types of footprinting, passive and active. Passive footprinting is when you gather information from publicly available sources, such as websites, social media, job postings, or press releases. Search engines are key to passive footprinting. I don't even see how you could do it without them. Active footprinting is when you actively engage employees of the organization using social engineering to obtain information. Humans are often and almost always the weakest link in a system. We can use techniques like eavesdropping on conversations, sending out fake emails that ask for personal information, spying on people's computer screens, and even dumpster diving for important papers. You would not believe what people throw away. And a lot of the famous hackers of the 80s and 90s and even now accredit dumpster diving to getting a large amount of data. Just avoid the really heavy wet bags. Let's step back to passive footprinting for a second though. Once you decide on your footprinting objective, the first tool you'll probably use is a search engine like google.com or bing.com. Using a search engine, you can find way too much information, let's put it that way, such as technology platforms, employee details, login pages, intranet portals, and so on. The search can easily provide even more details like security personnel names, what type of firewall they perhaps use, antivirus protection. It's not unheard of to find network diagrams and other information. You would probably be surprised what's publicly available on the internet, whether intentionally or most of the times unintentionally. And just for a special treat, in a later demo, I actually show you some really, really good stuff that's just sitting out there for no good reason. Oh, it's hilarious. In our Google hacking lesson, I'll teach you how I found some of these absolutely crazy things that are on the web. Social security numbers, confidential information, confidential business plans, do not disseminate, not for public release. Oh yeah, it's all right there. Pretty much only limited by your imagination at this point. Another potentially useful tool is Google Maps or Bing Maps, which can reveal office locations, phone numbers, hours, but you might be not surprised to know that that's really easily hackable. And whatever you do, don't look up my name and Google Maps in the same sentence. And if you actually do that, don't do what I did, because you will get into a lot of trouble. I'm really, really lucky to not be in a federal prison at this point. Well, back to the fun stuff. Social networking sites like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, these are great resources for discovering really intimate key details about people, relationships, both personal and professional. We're going to cover this in more depth in the social networking lesson. People searches like Zaba Search, White Pages, Spokio, even Intellius's free search gives up information. You can match emails, phone numbers. This is another thing that private detectives call skip tracing. Oh, yeah, and one of the easiest ways to gain information about a target is ask for it. Social engineering is underrated and hugely effective for collecting information. Social engineering gets its own section because it is that important of a topic. Are you paying attention? When I'm talking like this, it means something's important, or I'm also on a bumpy ride. I might even show you a few different strategies for how to manipulate your fellow human beings. I mean, coworkers, friends. But before that fun though, let's talk about note-taking. Footprinting can result in a ton of information, and if you don't get organized first, you are just going to get buried get frustrated, and you won't be able to use all of the information that you get. The more organized you are, the better you can see the connections, the better you can figure out what they're actually showing you with this data. Evernote, OneNote, if you have access to Microsoft Office, you have OneNote. It's great for syncing across devices. Evernote, also a really popular, totally usable option. Notepad++ is a great supplement, text editor, organize a folder structure, save note files inside the folder structures, categorize things that you find. Anything related to physical buildings goes in one pile. Anything that's passwords, another. Networking stuff, another. Diagrams here, pictures here. Keep like stuff with like stuff. I could always bring in my second grader and she could teach you how to do that. I'm just kidding, she doesn't want to do that. As you see, it takes multiple sources to build a complete profile of an organization. Footprinting combines passive and active methods to collect this information and align it with your hacking objectives. Next up, I'm going to show you the magic of Google hacking and how to refine your search results.